I'm a 3-time Latin class dropout. Why did young Amanda first decide to learn a dead language? I blame it on Catholicism. That's where I divined it was the language of spellcasting, of mysticism, of witchery. On my first day of Latin, part 1, I arrived late, a freshman bewildered by the hugeness of UC San Diego. My stomach sank when I realized I'd need to walk in between the professor and the already seated good students to get to an empty desk. As I tried to slink past, the professor stopped talking, looked me dead in the eyes, grinned dementedly, and blocked me like a linebacker. Was this guy for real? I ended up dropping out of college that same quarter and started my career in bookselling, a viable option for a Latin class dropout. Yes, bookselling is a real profession. I took to it like a fish to water and never looked back. Time flew, and 10 years later, I ironically ended up hired on as full-time staff at the UC San Diego bookstore, selling general, technical, and medical books. After watching the ebb and flow of new and graduating schools of students, my shameful status as a college dropout started to chafe at me. The 66% tuition discount available to staff members clinched it. I decided to get back onto the academic horse. A 10-year hiatus is not a typical leave of absence, so I had to check in with the dean of Muir College. He squinted at me and said, "Yeah, I guess you've probably matured." I was now re-enrolled at UCSD, officially declared as a literature major with a concentration in writing. I loved my coursework, but there was a troublesome hitch. UCSD writing majors must master a foreign language. While I was carrying a full-time load of classes, I needed to also maintain my full-time hours at work. Enter Latin, part 2. It didn't require attendance 5 days out of the week, since there was no conversational lab attached to lectures. Hooray, dead language! I took beginning Latin again. The professor was a bit dry, but gentle. I squeaked by with a B- and enrolled in intermediate Latin. The moment I walked in that next quarter, I realized that the instructor, one Elliot Wershbo, was the same clown who mindfucked young Amanda that first day in Latin more than 10 years ago. And despite his quirky demeanor, he clearly was not fucking around when it came to his work. He'd stride in every day in a button-down shirt and a colorful necktie to drill us in decoding sentences like, "The farmer's daughters love the pirate, but the pirate does not love the roses of the girls. The good students did not come into the school because they feared the savage eyes of their rough teacher. His Rate My Professor reviews are revealing. Acerbic and abrasive. He is the type of professor who wants to make your life a living hell. But also, Wershbo taught me lessons my father couldn't. You will learn Latin as well as how to be a grown-up. I was not ready for this level of adult effort, despite being one of the oldest people in the class. Puzzling out a single sentence often took me hours. I withdrew again. I proceeded with my major courses, earning A's and B's, blithely ignoring the looming language requirement for 2 years. Then I found out UCSD offered intensive elementary Latin, a 9-week summer session worth 12 units rather than the normal 4. If it was the only course I took over the summer, I could attend every day and still work full-time. Passing it would knock out a huge block of my language requirement, like a year's worth. But guess what sort of sadist would spend his summer stomping the language centers of undergraduate brains into shape? On the first day of summer session, he delivered what he termed a ferocious warning. People who work full-time will not pass this course. Challenge accepted. He spoke this omen while delicately slurping on a tiny juice box. Every day without fail, he'd have either a juice box or a round bottle of Martinelli's apple juice in hand. Really cute design on these bottles. They look just like an apple or a grenade. Speaking of projectiles, I found out he had served as a medic in Vietnam, where his duties also involved field sanitation. In an interview with the UCSD Guardian newspaper, he explained, as a medic, you're responsible for making sure human feces is disposed of. The joke at the time was that, hey, in 50 years, your grandkids are gonna say, what did you do in the war, Grandpa? And you can just say, burn shit. No wonder he would suffer no fools. He also mentioned in that interview that although he was not pro-war, he went willingly when drafted because he figured that seeing war firsthand would help him better understand the Iliad. In that summer session, I felt like a sitting duck in a grammatical no man's land. But terror coexisted with hope because it was clear that Worshbo was so severe with us because he believed in our caliber. He treated us as peers in seeking solace and satisfaction through rigorous deployment of our gray matter. Every sentence properly translated delivered a delightful jolt of serotonin. Worshbo was awesome in both the modern and antiquated sense of the word, inspiring awe or dread. He was my platonic ideal of a professor. I'd follow him to office hours after class where he kept a complete set of the Oxford English Dictionary, total catnip for word nerds, and a pull-up bar loomed in the doorway. I bugged him by email as well. Some offhand exchange in class prompted me to send him the Battle of Wits scene from The Princess Bride, which, to my great dismay, he pronounced not funny at all. And he added, give me Plautus any day. He tolerated my fangirling and tangents with bemused good humor, but always circled back to the reminder that my time was better spent on improving my Latin. So I applied myself to the task. I would work a morning bookstore shift, leave to attend class, return to work till close, then struggle home through traffic to nap before schlepping my sentences down to a corner of Lestat's cafe, to curse and scribble till 2 or 3 in the morning, then sleep for another few hours before doing it all again. I became an eraser aficionado. This went on for some weeks. Occasionally, Worshbo would walk through the bookstore and razz me for being in there, squandering my time at work like a chump instead of doing my homework. One fateful day, I was called upon to offer my translation of a sentence. I took my time at the board, making sure my printing was perfect, then proudly read my answer aloud. There was a chilling beat of silence, and for a split second, I thought he might hurl his chalk at me. I had seen it happen to a classmate already. He stared at me and asked, "Have you been using the Google?" Worshbo was hyper-vigilant against students using Google Translate to do their homework. No, I wasn't using the Google. I just sucked at Latin. I was crushed. I couldn't help it. I started to cry. My frayed, sleep-deprived nerves unraveled. I bowed my head and let the tears flow, trying not to snuffle. Worshbo had the good grace to look embarrassed, but also seemed grimly pleased. I sat through the rest of the class, quietly weeping, and then fled. The next day, I laid in wait outside the classroom, and when he came loping up, I handed him a Martinelli's. An offering to the victor, I said. "I surrender, I'm withdrawing." He smirked, but his response was tinged with sadness. "I did warn you." I know. That weekend, to celebrate my linguistic liberation, I went out with my sister and friend for dinner in Little Italy. I still didn't know what the hell I was going to do about my language requirement, but it was such sweet relief to abandon fretting over pirates and farmers and pigs and wolves and poets and roses that I put dire thoughts aside. That balmy summer night, as we walked back to my car, full of ramen and buns and a bit buzzed on Asahi and sake, things felt idyllic. That's why it was such a shock when a van pulled up alongside us, a woman jumped out of the passenger seat, brandished a gun, and demanded our purses. We didn't object, but she had a twitchy trigger finger. After blowing through my sister's wrist, the bullet took a tour of my stomach, bowels, and pancreas before landing on my aorta. Not only was my expensive underbelly dinner blasted into my abdomen, but I lost all my blood and nearly died. Upon waking up in the hospital, one of my first thoughts was, if I had been at home doing my Latin, this would not have happened. I still think about that. After I'd healed up, I went morosely to the literature department and begged for a path around the language requirement. They took pity and allowed me to take a few linguistics courses in lieu of an actual language. I also dropped into Worshbo's office hours to say hi. He leapt out of his chair and hurried around the desk to ask after me. He had heard what happened through the campus grapevine and tried to visit me at the hospital, but was turned away. I showed him my wounds and his eyes got wide. It was weirdly gratifying to shock him. We chatted for a while. He was sweet and solicitous. It was a balm to be around him. But then, as I turned to leave, he drawled, You know, you didn't have to get gut shot to escape taking my class. I turned back and replied, "Oh, trust me, if I had known it was an option, I would have done it years ago." When he found out I had circumvented the language requirement, he expressed in his quietly devastating way utter disgust for both me and the literature department. Nevertheless, when I finally graduated, he was there at my honors ceremony. In 2019, Elliot Worshbo passed away suddenly. I was broadsided. This man was a brick shithouse mentally and physically. He was so hale and hearty, I thought he would live to 100 out of pure, spiteful joy. An obituary written by a colleague in classical studies noted that Worshbo allegedly was developing, at his death, a manuscript on the history of Dawdling. They added, "I am not sure whether this was a joke or real." After his funeral, we were invited to choose keepsakes from among his snarl of colorful ties. I took two. One I'm wearing now. One I later toted out to the Temple of Direction at 2019's Burning Man Festival in Nevada. Although Burning Man is notorious as an orgiastic party, the temple functions as a secular space for contemplation of those things and people we've lost. It's an architectural marvel painstakingly constructed over months, destined to burn to ashes with the artifacts of remembrance that are left there. It made sense to me to take a remnant of Dr. Worshbo on such a pilgrimage to a modern-day site for the sorts of shenanigans that ancient Romans got up to at their festivals long ago. I'm pretty sure he would have absolutely hated this gesture and talked mad shit about it, which makes me really, really, really happy.
Give it up for Amanda Qassar, everyone.